now the nun costume actually makes sense, right? Okay, we have so many people here attached to the film, so I guess just come on down. Who have we got? We got Britt, Leach, we got Scott, we got Robert. Everyone, come on down. Let's talk about this. The main cast, please. So, as everyone's coming down, let's get a show of hands. How many people have seen Silent Night, Deadly Night before? Okay, that's probably about half of the room. The other half of the room that haven't seen it, it's pretty twisted, right? Mr. Sims, I presume. Britt Leach, how you doing? Pleasure. Grab a seat, we'll have some mics. Grab that one, Britt. You have to share, not mine. Okay.
Michael Hickey's on his way down. Screenwriter.
Yeah, we've got a couple of seats over here.
Screenwriter, Michael Hickey.
Very, very naughty indeed. So I guess let's go down the row, and then everyone can introduce themselves and talk a brief second about your involvement in Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I'm Michael Hickey, and I wrote the screenplay for Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Dennis Whitehead, Scott Schneid and I were co-executive producers. Scott Schneid and Dennis and I developed the script from inception with Michael.
Britt Leach. And I was Mr. Sims. I got the real booze, too.
Hi, Robert Wilson, Billy.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How does this film come about? You said started script with Michael. What came first? The script, the idea? How did it begin?
The idea. Well, I was an agent trainee at the William Morris office in the early 80s, and I was a graduate of Harvard, and one of the younger guys who was a senior had written a script and called me at William Morris. It was called He Sees You When You're Sleeping. He wrote it in a class. He sent it to me. It was very amateurish. It was about 70 pages, and it wasn't very good at all. The script wasn't very good at all, but the one-line sentence of a killer, Psycho Santa, on the loose on Christmas Eve in a small town, I thought was terrific and commercial at the time when pictures like Halloween and Friday the 13th were all cleaning up at the box office. So I brought the script to Dennis, who read it and said, yeah, this is really amateurish. We would need to start completely anew. And we did. We did, yeah. And Michael Hickey was a friend of mine, and I said to Scott, let's see if he might be interested in writing a script. So we started the development process. We raised some money to get the script written. Well, actually, Dennis, we did a 30-page treatment first. I think we paid Michael $500 to do that, right, out of our pockets.
Yeah, the deal was that you would pay me a little bit to write the treatment after we figured out what the story was, and then you would use that to try to raise the money for a full screenplay. And so I was pretty sure you'd never be able to do that, but I went ahead and wrote the treatment, and they went out and actually raised the money for the script. The story was developed by Scott and me and Dennis. I then wrote a 30-page treatment filling in all the details of the story, who Billy was, what the events were that led him to his psychotic breakdown, how all the killings were achieved, all the scenes, characters, and so on. They got the money to make the script under the terms of our deal, and I set about writing a full screenplay.
And the interesting thing in the film, if you know the main titles for guys here that have seen the movie a whole slew of times, it says based on a story by Paul Caney. Well, Paul Caney was the college kid who wrote that 70-page script, and he the story was not based on anything that Paul Kamey wrote. We used a one-sentence idea and threw everything else out, and we started completely anew. And Dennis and I had agreed to give Paul Kamey a based on a story idea by credit. This is the minutia of credits, right? Perry Botkin, the composer. Long story short, for some reason that Dennis and I had nothing to do with, Ira Barmack, the producer, ended up giving Paul Kamey based on a story by credit, which was completely undeserved. So, for whatever that's worth, that's just a little silent identity history.
So did you have, reading the script, coming with the concept treatment, did you have a problem getting the money? Like, did people see this and were just horrified, or were they just rushing to give you money knowing the success of slasher films at that time?
Actually, we had a lot of interest. You know, for instance, one of the directors that we had in mind was Sam Raimi, who went on to much bigger and better things.
And funny enough, Albert Magnoli, who
Right,
directed
and Albert
Purple Rain,
Magnoli, yeah.
a year or two later for Prince, wanted to direct Silent Night, Deadly Night. And we met with him. And we also met with Ken Kwapis, who directed pictures like The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. He said, she said. He directed numerous episodes of Freaks and Geeks and Malcolm in the Middle. These were young guys at the time. Albert Magnoli and Ken Kwapis were young guys coming out of SC Film School that Michael's agent at ICM represented. And I introduced us to. They had just directed some fabulous thesis films coming out of SC. And Dennis and I, that's what we were looking for. Dennis and I, a young, really visual director, you know, that had a feel for the genre. And yeah.
Because Charles Selly, the director, he's interesting. If you look at his career, he made a lot of faith-based films and religious movies that follow this. So it's funny that we're laughing about Sisterhood of the Pants. Like, this guy made Noah and super religious movies. To go from that to this.
Well, and that happened because Dennis and I, after the script was finished and developed, we were just young guys at the time. Our first movie, and we ended up getting frozen out of the entire production Dennis and I did. And it was taken over by Ira Barmack, who then hired the director, Charles Sellier. Everything from that point on was just completely, he had no part in it.
Yeah, Ira was an agent at ICM, and I knew him, you know, socially. He wasn't a close friend, but he was attracted to the script. And I think he saw the same commercial value in it that Scott and I did. And funny enough, he had a deal at a new company called TriStar, and the rest is, you know, called film history.
Yeah. So from there, you guys are pros now. Robin, Britt, how did you become involved? You get the script, I assume. What are your responses when you read the script?
It's money. I don't know how it happened, but you know, the fact about it, you guys know this. You get a call from your agent, and you might get what are called side. You don't read the whole script. Usually, you don't read the whole script. This was early in my days. Maybe later I could read the whole script, but you get your essentially your cues and your lines, and you go in and you read for them, and you figure I didn't get it, and then you've got it, you know, and you're on your way to Heber City, I think it was Heber City, Utah, where you had to fill out forms in order to get booze. I didn't figure that out, but you know, it was a very well, you can see what the lookout was like. Anyway, the answer to the question is I didn't read the script until I was given the script after I got the part. But it was a job, you know, it's a job. That's the way actors work. You get a job. And I guess that could be dangerous, but it was a horror film, and I knew that. It was fine.
I'd say the same thing. It was an opportunity to work. I did not see the entire script. I just saw sides and went to a casting session in the Valley, and one thing led to another. And the next thing I knew, I was reading for the producers, and then I was on a plane to Heber, Utah with Britt and
You were on a plane?
Well, you did differently.
Robert, this is your first film, right?
Yes, first film.
And then so you get the script. When you finally read the script, are you shocked by it? I mean, it's really. I gotta tip my. What is this? My habit. There's such a strange dichotomy to the film. There are some parts that are so overtly, deliberately hilarious. Play show class, but it is so dark in so many places. I mean, you just destroyed the moral fiber of Christmas, and I love Christmas. Yes. But so back to Robert, you get the script, you read it, it's your first time making a film. What are you thinking when you see this?
Well, it was my first time really in front of the camera, so this was all very new to me. Actually, when I got to Utah, there was a woman there who actually played Mother Superior, Lillian Siobhan, who's since passed. But she was also an acting teacher in the Valley, and I found that out once I got to Utah. And we were going to work some of our stuff together, and I went to her room, and basically I paid her cash out of my per diem pocket to run through the entire script with me. And that was the first time that I'd seen the script.
What motivation did she use for punish?
You know, no real details. She just said, you know, just kind of, you know, bring it from somewhere that if you want to do something bad. You know what I mean? She said, just find something in there. And really, I was so new to the game that to find something that was, well, what I found is what you got. It was, I was so new to the whole scene that every aspect of filmmaking, every bit of it, you know, from the first moment of the leading producer and the director, everything was brand new to me. So it was an incredible ride. I loved it. It's been 30 years now, and I run into folks all the time that absolutely love this film. And I'll tell you, at the time when it first came out, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Right? I mean, you know, since then I have 3 children, a lovely wife, and lots happened since then. So I didn't know then when I first made the film, you know, of course, you know what's going to happen with your life and whatnot. So it was a great start to the Hollywood thing, but I did shortly thereafter take a break and work on you know, building a family.
Right. So, skipping ahead, Scott, you said that you guys were cut out. Michael, were you involved in the filming at all, or were you out as well? Did you go to the Podunk, Utah?
No, I missed Podunk. What I think it's probably typical for screenwriters is once you turn in the script and you do your set of revisions, it's somebody else's ballgame. And I remember thinking, if I went there, I was sure the director really wouldn't want the writer standing around on the set second-guessing everything, which is exactly what I would have done. And so I never really thought too seriously about going. I'd been on movie sets before, so it wasn't going to be any great novelty. So I was not there for casting or any of the shooting or post-production. Once I turned in the script and somebody said they wanted to make it, I said, good, go make it. I'm done.
And then when you see the film, how's your response?
Yeah, well, the first time I saw it was at an invited screening, meaning the whole audience was invited. This was before the theatrical release. And I don't know who all these people were, except they were a very well-heeled looking crowd, and none of them looked like they would ever go to see Silent Night, Deadly Night unless they had to. So the movie starts, and 200 people sat there in stunned, slap-jawed silence for an hour and a half. My theory was they thought it was in poor taste. I don't know. And, but I didn't hang around to find out. I left as soon as the end credits started to roll. Until tonight, I had not seen it in a theater again. And I must say this screening was a lot more fun than the one in 1984. Outside of there are some cuts in the print, but mainly that, of course, that is all because of you, so thanks.
Thank you. And then Deaf Waltz had released the score for the first time it's ever been available. So Perry, it's an unbelievable score. It is absolutely just a twisted masterpiece that works so well in the film. It's so discordant. It's jarring. The scene when Billy at 18, when he goes into the house after the couple are making out on the pool table, you're just stabbing those keyboards. It's insane. Can you talk about the process of writing the score, how you became involved, and then obviously the end result?
Well, that'll only take a half hour.
Okay.
Anyway, Morgan Ames, who wrote those wonderful songs that you heard, she got me the gig. And Ira Barmack was looking for someone to do the music. And I had just purchased some synthesizers. and I had a little Mac Plus computer with a 7-inch black and white screen. And a 16-track tape recorder and a Botkin Acrosonic upright piano. And I had started to fiddle around composing music using these various instruments. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. I can make a lot of noise in a horror movie. So I had a meeting with Ira. We spotted the film, figured out where to go, and I sat down in my room with my Betamax and a beta tape with time code on it, and just figured out what I wanted to do and played it. That was the thing that knocked me out. Previous to that, I'd done nothing but orchestra work, and it was great fun to sit there. I mean, I played most of the scores, you can tell, with my fists, and it was great fun working on it, and then I went on to Morgan Mindy, you know, I mean that's, you know, and the theme from The Young and the Restless, which had nothing to do with this, but I had a lot of fun working on this picture.
So people that didn't have fun with this picture, the Parents Teachers Association, 1984, the film comes out. The opening weekend, this film outgrossed Nightmare on Elm Street. Crazy. And then it hits the fan. Can you all talk about your experiences during that controversy? I mean, I've got to imagine for Robert, people can see you on the screen, and then they see you in public. Same with you, Britt, as well. And then Scott and Dennis, I mean, you're producers, you're seeing this thing explode and then disappearing. Can you talk a little bit about the controversy and then the response that you all received?
I don't think any of us expected.
No, I mean, you know, it was extremely frustrating because we had no control over that. And they made a, you know, pretty profound mistake behind advertising Chime during Saturday afternoon.
It was actually the Green Bay Packers
Yeah.
football game in the
Yeah.
Midwest when all the families were around watching
It's
the
like
Sunday football game.
they didn't think it through. And then when all the controversy started and the publicity, which was, you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity. You know, when you're making a movie, you know, you couldn't have bought publicity like that. Now they probably would have just, you know, kept it in the theaters and, you know, let it ride. But
And I was in Boston on vacation visiting some friends, and it opened in theaters all over the Northeast. And I got called to be on the Phil Donahue show. If you remember Phil Donahue at the time had the afternoon talk show. And I said to my then girlfriend, I said, no way am I going. It's Mothers Against Movie Madness that we're going to be on the show. The focus of it was Silent Night, Deadly Night. So they're going to crucify me. So there's just no way. I just didn't go. But I watched the show, though. It was pretty awesome.
I'd just like to say that I thought the whole controversy was great, and I thought it was wonderful, because instead of that, the day after it opened, Dan Rather led the CBS Evening News with a story about Silent Night, Deadly Night. So that was pretty great. I got a call from Entertainment Tonight. I worked at Paramount, and that show was done at Paramount, and I knew some people there. Somebody called and said, "Are you that Michael Hickey?" And I said, "Maybe." They said, "We can't get anybody to come on the air to defend the movie. Would you do it?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I ran over and did an interview in which I basically did my best to excoriate the protesters. And they put it on the air the next day. And I thought it was all pretty hilarious. It must have been the slowest news week in history. It seemed like every newspaper in the country did a story on it. And it was endless, and then it ended. And it vanished forever, as we know. So, until a week and a half later when it resurfaced on home video, where it's had a very healthy life ever since.
Robert, can you talk about your experience? Because you're the face of this. So when the film comes out, who's public enemy number one?
Oh, I don't think so. People Magazine, I did an article with them. They wanted to know my reasons for doing such a role. And like Britt and both just said, it was an opportunity to work in Hollywood, and so basically over and over again, I kind of continued to repeat that in the article. They wanted me to say that I felt bad for doing it or something. I don't know, but it was just another piece of publicity as they're talking about it. They pushed this thing in regard to dating.
So can you all just really quickly talk?
I just want to mention.
Yeah.
This might or might not be a funny anecdote, I don't know. I was involved in animal rights stuff, and we were at a demonstration at UCLA, and we were faced off against the police. They were 50 feet away, 100 feet away, whatever, in lines. The protesters holding up signs about the vivisection, etc., and the police across here. And we did our thing, and they did their thing with the shields down and everything, and the batons at the ready. Of course, we were very intimidating, all of us running protesters. But finally, when it was over, and everybody had packed up and ready to go home, and the police were, I said, well, I'm out of here. One police officer, he might have been from UCLA or sheriff's or LAPD, I don't know, but he walked over toward me. And I said, well, wait a second, what's going on here? In my courageous way. And I stood there, and he pointed at me. And I stood there, and he came over. He had his shield up now, which made me feel a lot better. And he said, I just want to ask you something. How did you get that axe in your head? Is that all you want to know? Anyway, that was the only reaction that I got from the film. It was a job, And I really can't remember seeing it. I'm not too sure. Did you see it? Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember. Might have been, but I don't know.
Okay, let's take a couple questions from the audience, and what we'll do is after this, we'll all sign some articles outside the lobby. Do we have a couple quick questions? Anyone out there? Okay, the guy who left, he's wearing a Santa hat, so.
Always wondered when watching the film that the snow seemed very, very thin. Do you remember when you were shooting it? Was it very cold? Was it Christmas time? And did you have to bring any outside snow in?
Is the snow real? Is the question.
I was inside all this.
I know for the fact that the snow, when there's that establishing shot of Ira's toys and Maggie, you see the snow coming down, that was people on the roof throwing fake snow down. The movie was shot in March of 1984, so the snow was melting, as you can see in some of the scenes, obviously. But Dennis and I, again, were not in Utah because we were frozen out. Excuse me. Yeah.
Punished. Okay, there's a question right there. Santa hat. Yes, you. Yes, you.
For the actors, what was the tone when you were making the film? Were they trying to go from being scary, or was it just like being around the
I've been on a couple sets since then, and it's similar to any Hollywood set that you'd ever be on. You know, it's just that the content is what it is. So it just, you know, when we're not live, we're not shooting, right? When that's not happening, then it looks like any other Hollywood set that you've ever been on. But the moment it starts, and you know, for myself, putting on that suit was a little weird. So the moment I had the suit on, and the moment they said action, then I started having fun with it. And that seemed like it was the typical. That was the thread that kind of went through all of it. And again, it was like a typical Hollywood set. I'm sorry, excuse me. Go ahead.
So, Whitehead, right there.
I have a question for the composer. Are there any classical musicians or composers that influenced you into working in this field?
Harry, any classical musicians, composers that influenced you, and who were they?
Oh God, all I can think of is Glenn Miller. Stravinsky, of course, and Stockhausen, and most of the Varese, a lot of the modern and avant-garde composers, they influenced me. But I basically came out of a pop background, and most of my work was in the pop rock field. And so this was an opportunity, and because it was electronic, I could just turn on the computer, turn on my program that I was recording into, and just play stuff. And if I would play something, I'd play something, and then I would rewind it and play it back and look at it with the film. And if it, to me, fit the particular scene and what was going on, that was how I did the cue. Then after I had done most of the film, I went back and started to embellish and add melodies and do extra percussion things and so forth. But I basically just watched the movie, played what I felt like playing, and then came back and hopefully tried to get it more organized. And it was that was my great classical technique.
Okay, next question. Is the lady waiting right over there? Do you show the film to your families every Christmas?
My mother-in-law is in the last row of the time. She's never seen it before. My wife and my son never seen it before. So the first time for two of the three.
It's fantastic. Robin, your family, you raised 3 kids,
Yes.
right? Have they seen the film? How do they feel about the film?
My daughter's 12. She has not seen the film.
That's good.
My sons, who are older, they have seen the film. Seems like they walk around the house the next couple of days and have a hard time looking at me.
Okay. Gentleman right there, right in the right, white shirt.
Okay, the nudity was very tasteful, and I'm curious if Showtime made you insistent back then, was it pre-sold?
The nudity was tasteful. I actually don't agree. The nudity was tasteful. The Showtime HBO exists wasn't pre-sold back then.
HBO, TriStar was actually formed in the mid-'80s when Silent Night Deadly Night was just about made. And TriStar was owned by CBS, Columbia, and HBO. So HBO was actually a partner in the ownership of TriStar at the time. And when the picture was made, TriStar had a cable output deal with RCA Columbia. So it was kind of, HBO was going to do, I think, the cable movie airings, and I think RCA Columbia Home Video was going to do the DVD. But what happened was when TriStar buckled to all this corporate pressure, because they were owned by Coca-Cola, I said in part, all those deals just evaporated. And the producer Barmack ended up raising funds to buy the film back from TriStar. And that RCA Columbia Home Video deal disappeared, the HBO deal went bye-bye, and all new deals were made then down the line.
It's a really fascinating point. So film. The belief is that it's TriStar, Columbia TriStar. They pulled the film after the response. It just had a week or so after
10 days
out, 10 days after it comes out. But it wasn't necessarily Columbia TriStar. They were part owned by Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, they sell a lot of Coke around Christmas time, and they were livid when this came out, so they put corporate pressure on TriStar, and then TriStar pulled the plug. So
They would
if
be
you got Coke in your fridge at home, throw it the fuck out.
there were big billboards all over the place in Times Square with Santa Claus with bottles of Coke in the back.
Of course, yeah.
This is the same company that's financing down around the block. Theater in Manhattan, inside of Nigeria.
I mean, in a sense, you can say Coca-Cola invented the modern Santa Claus, right?
Yeah.
Because, Coca-Cola and advertising, Santa Claus, the two since,
Yeah.
the early 1900s.
Okay, couple questions. One right here.
Well, as long as we're talking about Santa Claus and advertising, one of the biggest controversies that was right out front on this film was the poster art, which had the chimney and Santa's arm reaching out with an axe, which by itself was probably, drew more negative attention than the content, which just simply would have been for people that went to see it. Does anybody have any reaction to the one-sheet poster artwork?
One of the greatest posters of all time.
I agree.
Really, one of the great art.
Who came up with that?
Well, Bert Klieger, who's an artist who I just talked to last year, actually designed the poster. And he worked at an advertising agency in New York. I guess they must have had a contract with TriStar or whatever. He did the job for TriStar. And he actually had done some alternate poster designs. And I actually had the JPEG that were a woman opening the door, and you see Santa shot from behind with a bloody axe, and she's opening the door to let him in. And she's screaming, and he's got a, so there were some alternate things. They tried nothing nearly as good as what ended up being the poster. Going down the chimney with Robert stuffing himself.
All right, let's take one last question. There, you with your hand up with your phone in your face and something.
I was just going to say, all right, that I first saw this movie when I was 11 years old. It just blew me away. And ever since then, this truly is, I think, the best horror movie I've ever seen. I was sick.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
We got the director and the writer of the sequel right here, my friend.
Well, just to answer that, Dennis and I had hoped to steer the ship of this franchise, that when we initiated this whole thing as the mother, father, whatever of the project, we always saw the potential for a Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise. And when we were frozen out, which often happens to young guys in Hollywood, you get screwed your first time out of the box, which we did, big time, we unfortunately then had no hand whatsoever in 2, which was half of our movie. The half the footage in 2 is from Michael's script and the movie. And we had nothing to do with 3, 4, 5, so that was always a bummer for us. We always wanted to reap the rewards financially as well as creatively to steer that ship, and we didn't get the chance.
Well, I think that's a really good comment to finish on, because this film is absolutely unbelievable. And that here we are 30 years and 5 or 6 weeks after the thing came out, and Friday night, theater's packed, it's still a Christmas tradition.
Great.
And, everyone, Robert, Britt, Scott,